Beginning with the key relationship with the airlines, we knew that we needed to present them with a new value proposition, a proposition that encouraged them to grow at YVR. As I mentioned earlier, airlines are being courted by airport communities like never before. Well, last September, we hosted the World Route Development Forum here in Vancouver. This was the first time that this global conference of airlines, where they get together to plan new air services, first time it was ever held in North America. And we used this occasion to announce a 5-year incentive program that will allow carriers to add more capacity without incurring additional landing and terminal fees. In effect, we froze their fees at the 2010 level. And the province of BC also used the Routes Forum to announce another change to the value proposition for airlines: the elimination of the fuel tax on international air services. And this is important to the competitive equation, as our neighbors in the US and Alberta do not charge fuel tax on international flights. Another piece of the value equation is to make the airport more operationally efficient for air carriers, more customer-friendly for passengers. And to this end, our success will be measured by reducing the minimum time needed to connect between flights at YVR. Today, that minimum time to connect is 90 minutes. And to ensure we remain competitive, our target is to get that time to under an hour. And we'll achieve this goal through a combination of changes to our facility and changes to how passengers and their bags are screened. And changes, I'll add, that won't compromise safety or security. The capital projects are not the large projects of the past. We aren't building a new terminal or adding a large number of new gates. The projects, which will be undertaken in 2 phases between now and 2020, will make connecting between international and domestic flights faster and simpler. They'll make it easier for passengers by adding more moving walkways and moving a satellite customs facility for connecting passengers closer to where their connections are. We'll be expanding the south side of the domestic terminal to allow us to expand pre-board screening and provide more retail and other amenities. And it also allows us to refigure the current gates and add 1 new gate to allow for the future growth of WestJet and other carriers. And the changes will also include adding more swing gates. And these are gates that can be used for either domestic or international operations, depending on how we swing these closable barriers or walls. It allows an air carrier to use a plane that arrived as an international flight for an onward flight in Canada without having to tow the plane to a different gate. Of course, not only do people need to move between flights, their bags do too. And today, people can often walk to the international gates quicker than the bag can get delivered there. So we're also going to build a new high-speed baggage backbone. It's not only going to move the bags faster, but it's add some redundancy into the system, so ultimately you'll be able to drop your bag anywhere in the terminal and it'll get to where it needs to go. So to sum up these projects, our goal is to become world-class when it comes to handling connecting passengers. And we want to take 25% of the connecting passengers out of the system, so they're no longer going through the border process or going through the pre-board screening process. And of course, this will be made possible if their bag is delivered directly tail to tail between the carriers. Well, in his presentation, Don talked about the need for ongoing work here, infrastructure projects that are necessary to ensure this airport can continue to operate in a safe manner. And we're a bit like a small city or municipality in that regard. We're going to be taking major upgrades to our sewer, drainage system, water mains, power supplies, dikes, and of course the inevitable and never-ending work to our groundside and airside pavement. I always know it's spring because Don digs up the backyard. Well, another piece of infrastructure necessary for the future of this airport was identified in the long-term development plan, our 2027 master plan that we prepared with community input a couple of years ago. And that essential piece of infrastructure is a secure fuel supply. And let me clarify at the outset that this project, and you may have read about it somewhat in the local papers, is not an airport authority. It's not a YVR project. Fuel at the airport is provided by the Vancouver Airport Fuel Facilities Corporation, which is a not-for-profit company owned by a consortium of the commercial airlines serving YVR. But it is a 40-year-old pipeline that comes in from Burnaby. It travels through Richmond onto Sea Island here. It's not adequate if you forecast our traffic going forward, and so we need to expand the capacity of that line. Let me say that the safety and security and environmental excellence are the core values in everything we do here, and those values need to inform the choice of the pipeline option. What's happening currently, and you may have read about it, is the Fuel Consortium has put forward a proposal to the Environmental Assessment Authority provincially here, and the government is reviewing their proposal. We're not pointing to one particular solution, but we are confident and of course I'm very interested that a sound decision be made that balances various interests and ensures a long-term fuel supply to airlines at this airport. Well, turning to our relationship with government, I note that we have an effective working relationship with all levels of government. With the federal government, our priorities will be to continue to open the skies. We want to advocate for more liberal aviation agreements, particularly with some key Asian partners, Taiwan, Singapore, other Southeastern Asian countries. We're also going to continue to work on border issues. And we're currently working on a project, I've touched on it. We call it baggage bypass. And under this program, a passenger transferring from an international flight to a domestic flight would no longer need to pick up their bags. The bag would go tail to tail directly to the aircraft. As a result of this, they wouldn't have to present themselves to Canada Customs in their bag. It doesn't have to be examined directly unless Canada Customs should want to, in which case we would give them the bag immediately. And people wouldn't have to go through pre-board screening. So that's really a tremendous improvement here. So we're working with the government on that, and they're very interested in that. And we'll also work, of course, with the local and national and provincial tourism agencies, because we would need to get our share of the growing Chinese tourism market, especially with now that China has granted Canada approved destination status. Well, our relationship with all of you, the community at large, is very central to the airport's future. We conduct an annual community survey, and this year, 82% of those surveyed expressed a positive view of the airport. And as I said at the beginning of my remarks, we want to do our part to ensure that YVR remains a strong source of employment, economic prosperity, and connectivity for British Columbians. And this year, we completed a new economic impact study, and it found that YVR provides over 23,000 jobs on Sea Island, generates $1.9 billion in direct gross domestic product for the province. And of course, the economic activity of airport employees and businesses spreads out into the community. And when all the multiplier effects are taken into account, the airport's total economic output is some $11.7 billion. Not bad, Graham, from where you started. Well, as part of this economic study, we asked a number of local businesses about their relationship with the airport. And 86% said that proximity to YVR was important to their organization's location decision. And many added that access to the airport is critical as their business is conducted internationally, of course. And they particularly stressed our connectivity to Asia. They really endorse expanding connections within the Asian market. Well, we take our mission of serving the community to heart and mentioned some of the community investment programs, and we view those as an important way to give back to the community. But we know that our biggest contribution is through providing the connectivity the community wants and needs. A new daily long-haul flight to Asia generates over $8 million in wages annually and contributes $15 million to British Columbia's gross domestic product. And our gateway strategy, the one I've outlined here today, will position YVR to increase service to more destinations around the globe. And it's going to enhance British Columbia's competitiveness and expand its economic contribution and generate more jobs. Before I close, I would like to thank the YVR community, and I mean all our business partners, airlines, agencies, all the retailers and everyone who's here, and all our employees for making such a strong commitment to YVR. And most of all, I want to thank, of course, the Airport Authority employees, and I don't want to forget our green coats. It would be a different place without them. They're just wonderful. So everyone on Sea Island here works hard to go beyond every day. That's it for me. I'd now like to turn the meeting over to you. If you have a question or comment, I'd like you to use one of the microphones there, if you don't mind. And if you can, state your name and your affiliation, because it helps if we need to later follow up with you. Thank you.